Hello and welcome back to the Water Matters podcast. I am your stand-in host for this episode, Jake, as we have a very special guest, one of our main hosts, Matt. How are you doing?
Very well. Thank you, Jake. Thank you for getting involved in this. Excited to have a little chat to you on this episode of the podcast.
Yes, and today we're going to be looking at a very special item that we produce and have produced last year, now producing again this year, and that is the Water Matters Yearbook. The theme for this yearbook is sort of revolving around risk, power, inclusion, and looking at how water affects everyone, but not equally. And there's a specific title for it. What is that again?
That is for 2026. The title of the Water Matters Yearbook is...
Hello.
For 2026, the title of our yearbook is Shared Waters, Unequal Worlds. And that is because, a little bit of background about the yearbook. This is yearbook number 2 for us at Water Matters. So we released the first one in 2025, and we put it out towards the end of 2025. But our plan was always to release this yearbook annually on World Water Day, which is the 22nd of March every year. And World Water Day always has a theme. So in 2026, the theme is gender and equality. And so if I look back on the World Water Day, so this is a United Nations day that is organised and happens every 22nd of March since 1993. And there's always a theme. So 2024, the focus was on leveraging water for peace. In 2025, it was on glacier preservation, and in 2026 the theme will be water and gender. And so we have, being that we release our yearbook on World Water Day, we have related a few parts of it to the theme, their chosen theme this year. Shared water, unequal worlds.
Sounds great. And just for people who are new to the yearbook itself, in essence, what does that make itself up of? What is it compiled of?
I wouldn't expect many of our listeners to have necessarily read or perhaps even seen our yearbook 2025. It is available on the watermatters.life website and has been there for several months now. But basically we wanted to put a yearbook together so that we can start to document what is happening in the world of water. And I do mean the world, because there are chapters on various sort of countries around the world, so it's not just purely focused on the UK. It's really an annual global review of how water systems are governed, how they're financed, water stresses, both in terms of water scarcity and flooding and sort of water challenges, I suppose, in different countries around the world. And released annually so that we can, over time, look back at what's changed, what's happened. So 2025 was the first edition. 2026 being released on the 22nd of March, World Water Day. 2026 will be yearbook number 2. And so it really contains a lot of information about what's happening in different places around the world. It's sort of an evidence-led global assessment of the water situation in different regions, and identifying what's happening, how it varies from country to country, how one challenge is very different in this part of the world to this challenge, but really the collective impact of our own sort of personal sort of behaviour and how we manage water differently in different places. The theme sort of that runs along or runs through all of our podcast episodes, which is sort of what does it mean to us and what can we do about it? The yearbook is an extensive review of what has happened from year to year, and so it's not necessarily a document that is designed to be read from cover to cover all in one sitting. It is a reference book really to see what's happening, sort of, and get a feeling of and an insight into the impact of sort of water management across the world.
And as you said as well, we're doing this annually, which is great, and I think is really important because those trends and the data will change annually as well, between anything political that happens, anything actually within nature and the environment that happens, as we've seen with climate change throughout the years. And last year we had that drought that was insane. Whether we have that this year, we've had a very, very rainy January. So will that change? And will the yearbook affect that? Why do this on World Water Day? Why is it linked to World Water Day?
From my perspective, so there's so the yearbook is put together partly by me, but majority through Sean Warren, who is one of our sort of article writers and editors on the team that we've put together with this Water Matters newsletters and podcast. We decided for World Water Day, from my perspective, it was actually mostly because my feeling is that not a lot happens on World Water Day. And unlike a few other, there are days for everything now. I think most people know that. You're in marketing, so you know that there is a day of the year.com or whatever it is, and you can find any day on
World Flapjack Day.
Yeah,
recently,
there is a day on everything, and some of them are used for good. Some of them are quite good fun, and some have no impact at all. And we thought, in the world of sort of sustainable water management, more should happen and more should be talked about, and more people should just know that World Water Day actually happens. And so we wanted to use that as the focus for the release date of the annual publication, so that we can make sure that we're doing our part when we release a podcast episode every fortnight and send our email newsletter every 2 weeks. In the lead up to the 22nd of March, we can sort of just build some awareness and hopefully start to make more people aware that World Water Day is a thing. It happens every year. It has happened every year since 1993. I think that would be a surprise to some people, even the listeners of this podcast, which is a group of people that are very interested in this subject. And so it's mainly we had to pick a date. We wanted it to be a set date of the year that we use every year to release the next edition, and World Water Day felt appropriate. Hopefully, if we can achieve our goal, it will mean that more people become aware of it, perhaps even start to organise events because of it and on it, and suddenly more and more people are just looking forward to and doing things because World Water Day exists, and hopefully that leads to a positive sort of consequence because of whatever people choose to do on that day.
It's a really good way to sort of hold accountability, I guess, to people around that day. It's not just an awareness of, oh yes, water exists and we should care for it. You're producing evidence that then backs that data, as well as, like you say, globally. So it really does sort of, I guess, put more of a magnifying glass over the entire world and what's going on there, what we can do about that in specific different regions.
Exactly. And I think the other benefit of it being annual, as I touched on earlier, is we do get to look back at what we included in it the previous year, and we get to see, well, what was said then, did it happen, did it not happen, were we right, were we wrong? There's a bit of sort of tracking, there's a bit of accountability. It's only ever a snapshot in time, and so and things, especially now, things are changing a bit more rapidly in the world of water. Prices are even just in the UK, prices are changing. Climate change and the weather is ever changing. You touched on just how dry it was in 2025, and now we've had. Well, I'm sure I heard recently it hasn't. We haven't had a day.
I think it's rained every day.
Yeah, exactly. Rained every day in 2026, or certainly a lot. And so, and it's not just a yearbook to track the weather and sort of, and the price of water or anything like that. There's a lot more to it than that, but it does include elements of that so that we can really see at one point per year what is happening. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? And what are we doing about it, collectively?
Yeah. And then you said the theme this year revolves around gender equality and inclusion. Aside from World Water Day having themes as well, why are we going into that theme, and what do you think the yearbook itself could give in relation to water with that theme?
So personally, I was quite surprised by the theme. I need to look more into why the UN have decided that as the theme for 2026. The reason that we are sort of including some elements of that within this edition of the yearbook is just to sort of acknowledge the fact that we want it to link to World Water Day. They always do a good job of providing materials that schools can use, activities and things that can be focused on because of World Water Day. I think it's my only sort of feeling and perhaps criticism is I think it reaches only a small number of people, and I never hear people talking about it. But the right intentions are there. It has the possibility and potential of having some decent impact. So in sort of reinforcing the same theme and making sure that we've got elements of the yearbook that do relate to that same sort of water and gender theme for 2026, it means that we can also push the same narrative, if you like.
Yeah, no, for sure. Cool. And then to wrap up, if listeners are to take one thing away from the yearbook this year, what would you love it to be?
For this year in particular, because this is, it's a very new thing for us to be doing here at Water Matters. We did release our yearbook 2025. This would be our second edition yearbook 2026. We would love the readers or listeners' feedback. Basically, we would love to know, what would they like to sort of see more of? What questions did it evoke in them? What would they, we want every time we send one of our Water Wednesdays fortnightly email newsletters, and every time we release a podcast every other Friday, we want people to join the conversation. We've recently enabled comments on all of our articles that are released on watermatters.life, so that people can literally read an article on the website and then share, as long as they're subscribed and logged in to the website, which is really very easy. They just literally have to put their email address in to become a subscriber. That means they'll receive the fortnightly email newsletter, and then it means that they can comment on that particular article. They can, share, well, what do they think about it? What was missing, if anything was missing? What would they like to know more of? They can really join the conversation, and if that can happen on, more and more articles on the website, but also certainly on the new yearbook when it's released on the 22nd of March, it would be really helpful, because we would much rather this be a two-way conversation than just us sharing what we think is interesting and relevant and worth sharing to a group of people interested in this subject. But what would be really helpful is if we get some feedback by return, and so that we can make sure that it continues to improve, and that we can focus on the bits that people think are most important. So that would be the one request. First of all, join us online, get the email newsletters, listen to the podcasts. We appreciate all of that. Hopefully, we are sharing information and topics that are of interest to listeners and readers. But the way that you can really help us make sure we are is to come back to us, to tell us, to share some feedback, and join the conversation and start more conversations about water. That goes back to the original reason we started this. It's not, in our experience, is not a conversation that many people are having around the dinner table or over a pint or whatever. But it will be, because we are all going to be impacted, possibly not positively, by the water situation, certainly here in the UK, over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. And so the more we can get people focused on it now, thinking about it now, talking about it now, the better the situation might be in a few years' time.
Well, thank you so much for that, Matt. I think that was really insightful, and for anyone that didn't know about the yearbook or wanted a bit more of an understanding on what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, I think that was really great. So, yes, the World Water Day is 22nd of March. The yearbook is also releasing on the 22nd of March, so 2 days from this episode releasing. So if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't become a member, please do. It's just so that you're notified when the yearbook releases. And aside from that, thank you so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please like and subscribe. And if you're listening on any of our podcast apps, please rate us as well. That would be great. Thank you so much, Matt.
Thanks, Jake. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Back for another episode.
Yes, see you then.